Hey guys, welcome back. It's Tango Pro Call again. In this video, we'll be working on trying to build a understanding of debugging and how to identify errors, and why debugging is important for every developer is because we'll run into problems with that code every time, and if we don't know how to identify those problems and if we don't know how to fix those problems, it'll take us a lot of time searching the answer up online. So it's way better to know how to handle these errors and how to identify these errors. Another issue is if we're dealing with user inputs, we need to figure out any way they could break the code and any way they could make the code output an unexpected output. So we're gonna open our files. Last episode we were working on Project Supply. This episode we'll be working on a hello world.py again. So we open this. So if you find this video helpful in any way, make sure you to subscribe, as it will help me out, and it will give me motivation to make more videos. So let's just make a simple program that will print let's just say print hello world again. We're going right back to basics. Hello world, we run this and then we get hello world, but try to identify any way we could somehow break this code and somehow we could make an error appear. Well, one way could be we start with a double quote and we end with the apostrophe. Python is even telling us here something's wrong, but let's ignore this for now. Run this, and then it says here EOL while scanning string literal. This may be gibberish for someone. Someone might not know what EOL means, someone might know what the bracket has to do anything with this, but let's look at this. Well, the problem is in this file, the directory and the hello world.py, and we can see we're in hello world.py, and then it tells us it's on line 1, which is pretty much the only line we have. We have line 2, but that's just white space being just empty lines. So we have this right here. We can look at this line, and I try to, as a developer, try to understand where the issue is happening. Well, we know from our past knowledge, if we start with the open double quote, we have to end with a double quote, and that's how we could fix it. But if it's not that obvious, what we might have to do is actually read this part, because usually this part gives you a lot of information of what type of error is. If it's a syntax error, it's telling us there's something wrong with the syntax. Where when I mean syntax, I mean how could I explain this? So basically, a string is a syntax, and there's something wrong with the string. So there's an error happening with the string, and we know a string gets identified with the opening quote and a closing quote. So we can just fix that, run this, and it outputs what we expected it to output. But how about we clear this? Now let's go to variables. So we have an age equals 25, and then height equals hold up, actually alright, so we have an age equals 25. Let's make this a string right now, and then we can do days equals age times 365. I don't want to really put a 0.25 just because of I don't want to make this into a float. 365. Notice we have age string. We'll come back to this. Now we'll print days. We run this. Well, this isn't throwing an error, but it's throwing it's giving an unexpected output. When this is called a logical error, where Python sees nothing wrong with this, but this isn't really what we want to output. We want you to output the amount of days someone has lived for, given the year. So let's dissect this. This is harder to dissect because it doesn't tell us where the problem is happening. So one way we can do this is we can add these code blocks here, and if you run this, if you run debug, pretty sure, run, start debugging. Actually, alright, we've run debug, and we've made it stop at here exactly. We'll save it actually. We'll run debug again, and then actually this is being really buggy. We won't run debug. We'll go back. We'll delete these. Delete that. Alright. So how could we fix this? Well, if we're looking at this and we're thinking there's no problems, well, let's look at what's making the days. We see three things that is making the variable days, and we are outputting the days. So the three things are the age, the operator, and the days in the year, which is an integer. Alright. Let's look at the age. So this age corresponds to this variable age, and then we can see we've set the age into a string, and we know if we want to times two numbers together, it's not possible. Well, it is possible, but it won't actually do the mathematical operator if we times a number by a string or a string by a number. So we can see one problem here. We need to get rid of these quotes and make it into an actual integer. So that's one of the three areas fixed. Now let's look at the operator. Well, we are wanting to times it, so that's alright. The operator's alright. And let's look at 365. Well, the days are alright too. If we want to go more specific, we can do 0.25, but right now we don't want to go specific. So we've looked at everything that's making up the variable days, and now we run this, and it's outputting what we wanted to output. That's one way we could work out logical errors. Another way is obviously, well not really obviously, is another way is using code blocks to debug it, but it's been glitchy for me for some reason. So unfortunately I can't show you that now. So we've worked out actual Python errors, being these errors, and then actual logical errors being these sort of errors. But there's one more. Well, there's another type of errors I want to show you, and it's called user. It's like a user type error. So let's clear this. So let's say we'll make age again, and we'll make it equals. Let's say we have let's say we want to get a age from the user, so we do input, and then enter age. This alone will make an error. I'll show you why this line of code will make an error. And then we'll do days equal age times 365 print days, enter age, let's just say 12, and it's doing it again, isn't it? Look, it's making another logical error. So we retrace it. We go to what we're printing, which is days. We go to the variable days. We see age. Well, age is an input, which is getting a input from the user. But remember, we want to integer this input. So what we can do is we make it in open bracket. Remember, you have to end it with a closing bracket. So it's now we're getting an integer from the user rather than a string, and then we're timesing that integer with 365, and then we run it. We get 12. We do 12, and then 380. I also want to show you other data types you can take in. You can take in float. You can take a float, and you can take. I don't think you can take a bool, or you can take a bool. But float, integer, and input are the most and string are the most common ones. So we'll put this back to integer. Okay, so let's look at a user input, user error, where a user could make an error. So we run this. So let's say enter age. Well, let's say if a user doesn't write a number in, but actually writes like 10, like in words. Let's run this, and it's giving us a big error, and it's giving us a more scary error. But let's just see what's going on here. Well, we know the location, the same file we're in right now, and then we know it's line 1 yet again. So line 1, well, it looks fine. No syntax errors happening. Well, it's not a syntax error, it's a value error, meaning the value that's given to this isn't an integer. So the value that the age is holding should be an integer, but it's not an integer because a word can't be an integer. And this is a bit more gibberish. If I can identify this in the future, I'll be good, but for now you don't need to identify this. And then it's giving us the whole line of code where it's going wrong. So how can we prevent this? Well, I'm gonna introduce a new concept today called try and accepts. So basically, let's just do this. We'll do try, and then we could do that, and then we do accept, and then we print not a valid input. Alright, so before I explain what this is, let's run this. We'll run this, we do 10 again, and all of this should go inside. This should go inside here. Do 12, and then the outputs what we want to output. We do clear, we do 10, and then it prints not a valid output input. And it's a way better message than having a lot of error messages coming at you, because we create this message saying if this doesn't run, this will happen. So basically what's happening, Python is trying everything inside here, inside this try block. So basically when we have something like this, a try and a comma, colon, what we have to do is putting the code inside the try block, and how we put the code inside the try block is by we indent it. So let's try doing this. Yeah, let's try doing this. We run this, and it's giving another error at line 2. This is because it's not indented, so we'll indent these two. My text editor has a weird thing where it indents it twice, where it should be indented one time, but one indent is basically 4 spaces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's an indent, 4 spaces. And how you can indent manually is pressing tab. For me, tab only indents twice for some reason, but for you, tab should indent 4 times at a time. So now what's happening is Python is trying everything inside of this. Yep, and we know this because we have a try colon, and then we put we indent it inside the try. And what happens if it doesn't, if it makes an error? So if this gives us an error, then what will happen is it won't run any of these, and it will run the except, and when it gives an error it'll print this. But if it doesn't give us an error, it'll run all of this, and then it won't print this. It'll forget all about this code, and that's basically what try and except does. So let's do it one more time. Well, let's import a value where it wouldn't give us an error, like an actual number. So 34, and we can see since we did 34, is running all the code inside this try block. But when we actually give a error, so 11, it forgets all about this, and it goes to this line of code. That this is one way of fixing user errors, because if you don't handle user errors, then the program will shut on them, and they'll get confused. But we can make this program a bit better. You can see here, if we want this program to run, we have to have it all in the try except block, and we don't want this. We don't want that our whole program to be inside the try and except block. So what we want to do is we only want to try this. We only want Python to try this, and then so we want them to try this, and if that throws an error, we just want it to print this. So let's make an error, so 10 again, but it does print it, but it gives us another error saying age isn't defined. And what that means is the variable age isn't defined anywhere, although it is defined up here. Well, what's happening is since this try block failed, it discards this variable and it makes this print. So how we could fix this is making an age here, but instead of making it in input, we can just say 0, because if they input a invalid input, we want to reset the age to 0. So we run this, we do 10 again, and then it shows 0. Although that is a bit ambiguous, we can do this to make it a string. The days you can, and then that makes it a bit more clear, although this is a bit weird the day you've lived for 0. It's still a bug, but it's a way better way of keeping an error in your program. So what we've went over this video is one, some errors. So those errors being print, oh well. So this is an error. This is a syntactical error. We've mentioned there's some value errors and some variable errors. We run this, it gives us a syntax error. So we also learn some logical errors. So print 5 times 11. It should print 55, but it doesn't. It prints 11 times, which is not what we want to print. So we fix that by making actual integer 55. We fix some basically data type errors, let's just say type errors, and those are being age equals input enter age. Obviously we want age as integer, not a string, because this as default returns a string. So we do fix that by putting an in at the start and in at the end, and then it fixes that error, and then we fix some user errors. So when we have age again in input enter age, so we can try this, accept this, and then print. Remember, since if we're going to use this age variable later on outside these try except blocks, we do need to set an age in the except block if the try block fails. So we do print age divided by, I don't know, just say 10. Do 4.3. So it should be 4.3. Let's do 4g3 not valid 0.0. So those are the 4 errors we've managed to handle. If you found this video helpful in any way, make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment down below too if you got any questions. I will make sure to reply to them. I will make sure to help you out. If you got any suggestions of any other videos, please do mention that. Make sure to watch out for the next video.